Welcome back, guys, to Real Estate 101. I'm Dominic Pascucci from Signature Homes and Estates.
And I'm AJ Cooper from AJC Realty Exchange.
We're here talking about lending with our very best lenders.
Sammy Vintola from Unity Bank.
And Brian Blada from NJ Lending. First of all, I just would like to thank Sam and Brian for being here today. We really, really appreciate you guys with your knowledge and education and what you're going to bring to the table for today's meeting. But what really inspired you to become a mortgage lender?
Yeah, I'll take that away. So I was probably in my mid-20s. I was working in corporate America. I didn't love it at the time. I was looking for a career and positional change. I'd owned a condo I had purchased. One of my very good friends was living with me, and he was paying me rent, actually, which if you're a young buyer looking to get into real estate, great move. Have a friend live with you. It offsets your mortgage. Sort of my start into real estate at the time. I was looking to purchase another property, looking at doing a renovation loan. I hear someone loves reno loans at this table. And I started looking into 203K loans. I must be sick because I loved it, and it really introduced me to what a loan officer was and what they really do. And it sort of led me down the path of looking into being a lender. I realized you need a few things. You need to be organized, you need to be good with math, and you need to be good with people. And it sort of just happened that I guess that's kind of how I'm made up. And I took the plunge, and I never looked back from that point.
And Sammy, my man, what about you?
I had no clue. I fell into this 28 years ago. I was at a birthday party for my goddaughter, and a good friend of my brother's who owned a mortgage company. We struck up a conversation. A couple days later, my brother called and said, "Hey, Joe wants to talk to you." I called him up. He said, "Come in for a job interview." I had absolutely no clue what I was getting myself into. I thought it was a salary position. I was actually looking, hopefully, to get on the fireman's list. And I knew nothing about mortgages, interest rate points. The only points I knew of is on Sunday when you bet football, you give points, you get points. So I went into this absolutely clueless, and 28 years later, I'm still doing it.
Wow. That's fantastic. I remember my dad said the same thing. He was saying don't call us, we'll call you. Police, fire department, postal service, and then little did you know we both wind up in financial services because it was the unforeseen. Now it's saturated. Sure. So just following into that next question, obviously we're in a tough market. It's not easy, but looking at the trajectory of the rates from where we were at in 2020 to now at 8%. What's your prediction for 2024, and how will the volume of buying be affected?
Go ahead, Sammy.
What I feel is that we're not going to see, I think 24 is going to be a tough year, to be honest. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I think it won't be till this time next year in early 25 that you'll start to see the interest rates come down a little bit. Now, the interest rates will eventually come down. Will they ever come back to COVID levels? No. You'll never see that 2.5%. 2 3/4. That was an anomaly. It won't happen. However, you'll probably see the rates come back down to 5.5%, 5.25%, hopefully 5%. And I think with that will spur people to start putting their houses up for sale again, and hopefully start getting people out there and increasing, the volume and the inventory.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's basically exactly what I was going to say. Predictions on rates, I try not to make them because it's a very humbling experience, especially over the last 2 years. You'll be wrong more than you're right. And all I can say is you look at what the Fed is doing. They had a meeting this week. They did not raise rates again, somewhat signaling they're probably at the end of their rate hiking cycle. Jerome Powell has been very clear in his messaging, and that is higher for longer, meaning he wants to keep rates here as long as he possibly can.
Exactly.
Until he is basically forced to begin cutting rates. Right now, the expert analysts on Wall Street are saying that first rate cut is projected for around mid-year next year. Now, they've been wrong, and they've been pushing that date back. Originally, it was supposed to be the end of the year of this year, and they've already pushed it back to mid-next year. So I couldn't agree more with Sammy. I think probably around the second half of next year or into 2025, you may start to see some real movement in interest rates. And on your point, Sammy, about the 5%, I think that's a key number. I think when you see a 5% in front of a mortgage rate, people will be more inclined to sell their houses, move up purchases. You'll really start to see the gears sort of become unstuck and start to really churn again.
Yeah, you can't have high rates, high prices, low supply, and high demand. It's called a gridlock market. There's no bloody movement. So when you have 2 years grinding with no WD-40, obviously they're not going to turn. So, and correct, and people don't understand, like I talk to Sam all the time, you'll never see 2019 prices again, even in houses. It has come up around 15%, in some cases even 20 with the overages, but at least if they come down a smidge and then the rates come down a smidge is a happy medium, but you'll never see what we saw again, but that's not the point. Prices have historically appreciated, so that's something we could all hope for going forward. We don't want real estate to stay stagnant, so it was an anomaly, so we're going to now average out.
And I guess another question would be, what unique products does your mortgage company offer to clients?
Yeah, so we have pretty much any product you have out there. We have all your standard, your conventional, your VA, your FHA, USDA. Those are sort of your 4 staples. We have renovation loans. 203K is the FHA version. Home Style is your conventional version of a renovation loan. We do non-QMs, which are more of no-income loans or bank statement loans, or some products for self-employeds that maybe their tax returns don't show everything that they need to qualify for a traditional mortgage. So we certainly have a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. And I think Sammy probably has pretty similar, maybe a few more to add on to there.
Pretty similar. For 27 years, I worked for a mortgage company, and I made a transition to a bank. Few advantages, one being that we could do loans in all 50 states. One of the other big advantages for me was the non-warrantable condos. With the condo complex that collapsed in Miami a couple of years ago, the questionnaires have become much more difficult, and a lot of the condos are not being Fannie Mae warrantable. So you either have to go to a non-QM product, or for us, we do that, and there's very little hit as far as the points or the interest rate. So it's a pretty good advantage. The other thing that we do is we offer a portfolio product. It's kind of a old school loan, whereas for somebody putting 25 or 30% down who's self-employed, who may not show Uncle Sam, you know what, their gross is terrific, but their net's not really what it should be. It's more of a common sense loan that if you have, you know what, a good down payment, good credit, good reserves, and we see that although you're not showing a lot of income per se, you're grossing a lot, that's a loan we'll do with a rate that's relatively really strong compared to some of the non-QM or no-doc rates out there. But again, we do VA, FHA, conventional loans also.
Okay.
That's like basically saying, yeah, we know you got 2 sets of books. Uncle Sam is saying, we know you got 2 sets of books, the one it's supposed to be in and the one you're telling us, but we got a loan for you anyway.
You said that, not me.
I know nothing, but I want to talk about, add to that. That was, especially loan products. You came in my office the other day and told me that you could do 52% DT, debt to income. Can you explain that more of why they've expanded? It used to be at 2836, now it's at 52.
Well, Brian, I'll tell you, on FHA, your DTI, I believe you can go to 56.9.
Oh, wow.
And still get a DU approval. Okay. You want to stay around 45 front ratio, your loan ratio, but you could go up to a 56.9 and still get an approval on it.
What would be your safe bet to recommend for the all-in for your monthly contribution to your debt plus your mortgage note to be at what percent of your monthly income? Not 56.9 as you're over leveraged, but what would you think would be?
AJ, everybody's situation is different. I mean, the less debt, the better, obviously, but you may have somebody who has a 56 debt to income ratio, and we're not counting the 2 brothers who live there who get paid off the books or can't go on the loan because their credit may not be good. So it's hard to answer that question. Like anything else, the lower the debt to income, the stronger borrower you are. But there are circumstances and situations that when we look at it, the debt to income ratio may be higher because of certain income that we just can't use.
Exactly. Maybe they have overtime, or they have bonus income, or they have a second job they haven't done for 2 years.
Exactly.
There's other income there that we just technically cannot use based upon federal guidelines, which we have to follow. There's other situations, and at the end of the day, everybody's an individual. Every mortgage is like a thumbprint. Everyone has their own fingerprints.
like
What
that.
we can qualify. It's a good one.
I'm going to steal that.
That's exactly true, though. Everybody has their own situation, and it's not really up to us to tell someone what they should or shouldn't do based upon their financials. We have guidelines that we must follow, and we follow them to the letter of the law. But at the end of the day, every individual makes their own decision, and it wouldn't be right for us to overstep and tell somebody to overconserve or anything like in that nature.
That's awesome. What is the most common loan that you guys are working with now? What is the trend with buyers? Where are they going towards more now?
It's still the 30-year fixed. It's been the staple for 28 years, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Maybe some areas in 06, 07 it was a bit different, but the 30-year fix has predominantly been the main mortgage on the purchase side of a transaction. ARMs were popular for a little bit, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. A lot of the mid-sized banks are offering ARMs. A lot of them are not lending in that capacity anymore. ARM pricing nowadays just doesn't quite make sense.
Not good.
Your discount to a 30-year fix is maybe 1/4%. It doesn't make sense to take on the risk of an adjustable mortgage for such a slight decrease in interest rates. So I would really say the 30-year fixed, it still reigns king out there in the lending world right now.
But now we're going to talk 203K. Yeah, that's my loan. All right, so 203K, why I love it so much, I spoke about it in season 1. It's a fix and repair loan. It's basically a molded loan. If you don't have the cash to put down the house, you could finance it, and you could pretty much get a new used car. It's like you get a house built in 66, you fix it up in 23, and next thing you know, it looks like it was built in 23. So with that being said, with a 203K, the lending limits in Bergen County are very generous. For one family is like $1,039,000, I believe. Okay, over $1 million, right? So would you recommend, based on the current rates, to get that fourplex, do the 203K house hack? What's your position on that? What do you think? Even because obviously it's hard to take in the rates because they're superseded by the interest, but it's a good idea.
I've been doing 203Ks for a long time, starting back in 1995. It's a great product. Again, it's not for everybody. People don't realize, one of the good things with the K is there's two different type of Ks. First off, there's a streamlined 203K where the repairs are under, they say 35, but it's actually 30,000. And there's a full-blown 203K where repairs are over 30 and you have to have a consultant and things of that nature. The streamline is nice because with the streamline, they will give you half the money at closing. The other half they will give you upon completion. The fully blown 203K, the contractor has to have the wherewithal to start the project by himself. There's usually a period of 5 draws, so they won't give a draw out till the first, let's say 20% of the job is done. So is it a good loan? Yeah, in many cases it is. People don't realize the rate's higher. There's more fees than expected.
Yep.
People think it's just the sales price plus your repairs, but no, you have a contingency reserve, which is usually 15%. If it's a full-blown K, they usually build 3 to 6 months mortgage payments into the loan. So there are things of that nature. So it depends on the situation. It depends on the people's finances. Is it a good loan? Absolutely. Is it for everybody? No. As Brian was saying before, the conventional offers their version of it with the home style, and I believe that's just on the one families. Can you do multifamilies on
Owner occupied.
It is not yet.
I'm
Either
not
one or
sure
both
for
owner
multifamily,
occupied.
to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you can. I believe you can. It's probably just different down payment requirements. However, that is changing on November 18th. Previously, it was a 15% down payment, which is why it probably wasn't very popular as a conventional. You'd go FHA for the lower down payment. That is changing on November 18th. Conventional is going to offer a 5% down payment product for 2 to 4 family homes, owner occupied only.
Yes.
Now, to go back to what Sammy was saying about the 203K, it's a fantastic product. Again, not for everybody. Anything with real estate is managing your risk. And if you are the person that wants to take on the risk of tenants and other people occupying your home, fantastic product. You should absolutely go for it. Like you said, costs are a little bit higher. Not crazy. It's going to cost you a few $1,000s more, but you have to understand you could get $100,000 of renovation money, and it costs you a few $1,000s more to get that. I typically say between $5,000 and $8,000 more.
No, in basis points terms, like how much more of a percent? If the rate's 7.75 today, how much would the 203K be?
It's about a 0.5% increase. Yeah, it's not.
No.
If you think about big picture and you think about what you're getting, it's going to cost you a bit more at the purchase. Sure. The goal here is you're going to buy a property, you're going to renovate it and increase the value of it. When you're finished with that renovation, you have to think about your future equity position. And if it costs you a 0.5% and make up a number $7,000 now, but you get your new used car that is worth $50,000 more, not a bad trade-off.
How did you meet Sam?
That's a loaded question. I started in 2018, but I've known you since I was about 5 years old.
Since you were a kid when you come to your dad's office.
Because you've known, I remember I actually remember, well, I was in the office even in 96 when Helen was working there. She started even before Helen. She was in 2000.
Bill Smith?
Bill Smith, sure I do. You know, the whole place would smell like the burnt coffee that we had for the day before, that you guys had. I miss that guy. He was my dad credits him, he's as the dean before the dean. I remember Bill Smith, good man. Anyway, but that's when I met Sam, but we actually grew into a relationship through my teens at the Dante events.
Yes.
We went to the Man of the Year, we went to Christmas galas and tons of political events, and then
Great organization.
yeah, it is, and credit to the Dante again for having us. And I really started doing business with you in probably really solidly in 20 when you did my friend Brian's house over in Nutley. Best thing was handing him the keys. That was it. Very good close, tough closing, but we did it. And that's when the rates were 2.5. You got him at that rate. You locked him in at 2.5.
2.5.
Crazy.
Sure.
At that purchase price.
And I'm just thinking that you actually knew me when you were 5. That makes me feel very old.
And I kid you not.
Oh.
And I remember. So yeah. And what about you both, Brian? How did you meet Dom?
Well,
I should say, Dom. How did you meet Brian?
I mean, I met Brian in a unique situation where the lender we were using at the time wasn't able to get the deal to go through. The listing agent at the time said, you know, contact Brian. I'm like, I don't know. It's a good thing I did. Came right in. 3 weeks later, we closed. I didn't even have to ask any questions. I say, Brian, how are we doing? Everything's good. Okay, great. Click. I don't like to micromanage. I let them do their thing. And from that point on in 2018. Yep. At that point,
AJ and I never have that 3-second conversation.
well, I don't
As you may know.
I don't micromanage. I just say, are we in good shape? And Brian just does his thing, and
No.
he's impeccable. I mean, just like you, Sam. I'm sure your speed and efficiency and transparency with the client is impeccable. That's what I hear all the time. So that's how I met Brian.
Sam beast mode. I ask him. That's why I work with him. I can't stand half the lenders out there.
They
'Cause this is what I do.
stink.
No, I didn't say that.
No, half
Except
of them are
it's the-
incompetent.
well, some, yeah. I'm talking about. I like to be done. If it's today, I'm done yesterday. I'm fast.
Right.
I am fast.
Same.
And right. So if he asks for a pre-approval, it's already in the inbox. I go, son of a gun. I
There's
love it. I ask, and that is true. I do ask him a ton of questions because that's who I am, and I need to know. And I'm a very in-depth person when it comes to the deals, and that's how I treat my clientele. I'm
Yep.
very, very thorough. But my biggest question is, what do you enjoy most about working with Brian?
Brian is well-rounded, well-educated. Every single client that he's worked with me on my deals, they came back saying, now we know more about mortgages. So for me as a realtor, even though you're buying a piece of property, we want you to be educated in every aspect, you know, lending, title company, and just to hear that feedback of how a mortgage works, you're fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it. This is turning into a great segment here. I like this. Anything else?
And Sam is honest as the day is long, and you know, I really appreciate this when I ask him, hey, you know, what do you think about this situation with X down? And he'll just tell you straight out, it's probably not a good idea. They should wait, you know, because I like to think about we need to sleep at night. You know, we work the same way. We're not trying to cheat people just to get a quick commish, you know, on the side commission, and we're not doing that. And you know, we like to work with lenders that are honest, because I've seen a lot of quackery with lending that will. I've seen a lot of black market appraisals. I've seen a ton of them. I call that the Tuesday special, you know, the envelope under the door, because there's a lot of, you know, that's a good question. What do you think of that? $100, $140, $120, 100 over, and they're appraising. You and I both know something was under the Tuesday, under the door on Tuesday for the Friday appraisal, because I don't know if you know, there's no way that these houses, some of them were so poor condition, even in Jersey City, $140, and you know, he's over telling me 70 over, and it's appraising. Can you shed some light on that?
On that, no, I can't. On that, no, it's not through anything in that regard of manipulating a value or looking for something higher. I can't give you any information on that because it's not something that I would do. It's not something that my company would ever do. Like you said about clients and about being an honest and true realtor and an honest and true mortgage lender, I look big picture, and I would never look to do anything illegal or nefarious or shady or gray area to get one loan closed and then lose your license and not be able to do any loans in the future.
No.
It would never happen. It's just not the way that I run my business. I know it's not the way that Dom runs his business, and I think that's just, you play the long game. You look to do things right over the course of time.
You have to.
Yeah.
There's no to it. You know, you have to do things right. And, you know, I can't tell you going back, especially back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was like the Wild West when there were mortgage reps out there creating W-2s and tax returns and stuff. And I would sit with people and it's just not something I do. Or I would tell somebody something and somebody would tell them what they want to hear. And 2 or 3 months later, they would close and come back and say, hey, Sam, you know what you told me was exactly right. You know what, as AJ said, when you get up in the morning, you have to look yourself in the mirror. You have to know that you were honest with the client and tried to do everything you can to help them.
Absolutely.
Those ninja loans back in the day were, that was a tumultuous time. People had 5 houses that they were leveraging and using other people's names. There was a time that you could use another person's name just to sign. Like a turtle.
Crazy.
A turtle could have walked in and said, "Hey, you doing? You're approved." So to wrap it up, we have one really great question that I know that our viewers definitely want to know the answer to. Mentally, looking back at 2.5% to 4% is very nice, and it's cheap money, and it's an anomaly, and it'll probably never happen again. All the stars align, but unfortunately, there was a backflow in 2020, and people are still looking for homes today. But they're at 7.75, 7.25. They're high. How can somebody mentally buy a home today? Let's make the public feel better and realize that the times are changing. How can they mentally buy a home today and be okay with the rates and sleep at night and say, I didn't get screwed?
Well, what I tell people is, and you probably heard this before, you marry the house, you date the interest rate.
I love that.
If
Fantastic.
I love
That
that.
is
If you're
fantastic.
comfortable, if you're comfortable with the payment,
That's good.
as I tell people, if they like the house and they're comfortable with the payment, I'll say, listen, the rates will come down. Again, if they come back down to 5.25% or 5%, in a year or two, you're going to drop your payment $400, $500, $600. So if you can make the payment now and you love that house and you're comfortable with that house, do it. Don't wait on it. Don't sleep on it. Do it, and then in a couple of years, you'll reap the benefit when the rates drop and you could refinance.
It's like we say the same thing to our clients. I say the same exact thing. It's about the monthly payment. It is. And that's why when we spoke about before mortgage products, it is why the 30-year fix is the most prevalent product. I say to my clients, if you can handle the payment now, it's never going to go higher. You don't have to worry about it going higher on you. It can only get better if you refinance. And I'll tell a quick story. We just had Halloween, so it's a spooky story, all right? So it's about a year and a half ago, it was early 2022, I had a client who was under contract to purchase a home. I think I had him locked on a 30-year at about 4.25. In today's standards, fantastic,
That's
right?
a homer.
Back then, it was a bit of a shock because rates had just been in the 2s, 3%. Under contract, locked in, we're good. Home inspection didn't go so well. Contract falls through, we cancel it, okay, on to the next one. As Sam, you remember back then, you'd blink your eyes and rates were up 0.5% the next week. And it still happens today, but this was new back then.
It was scary.
It was a shock. It was hard to really square with. So he went to look for a house the following week. Rates were 4.75, 4.75. And he said, absolutely no way. He said, these rates are too high. I'm going to wait for them to come down. He moved with his wife, kids, I believe he had a family at the time, moved home with mom and dad. Nothing wrong with living with mom and dad, but he was going to move home to wait for rates to come down.
That's the mistake.
Here we are a year and a
That's the
half
mistake.
later.
Still at home.
What do? Do you then at that point choose to stick to your guns and continue waiting it out? You could be there for another 8 years. Who knows? So couldn't agree more with what Sammy said. When you purchase a home, if you can handle the payment now, you'll have an opportunity to refinance. We don't know when, but presumably in the next couple of years.
Exactly.
You can refinance and bring that rate down. If you buy now and then you refinance later, the appreciation that your home took over those couple of years, that's your appreciation. If you wait to buy when rates are lower, that same house that's $400,000 now might be $430,000
you've lost it.
a year later.
Here comes the cherry. You ready? You can always change the rate, but you can't change the price.
There you
That's
go.
why you don't throw your money in a blender and go 100,000 over, $120, $150. You bought a mausoleum. Let's not do that. But that's all I got to say. I'm done. What do you say,
over.
Dom?
No, it's just so much education, so much knowledge going on that, when you have well-rounded mortgage representatives like yourselves, it makes all the difference. It makes the process very smooth, very easy, and me and AJ can't really thank you enough for being here, both of you.
Sincerely. It was
Seriously.
an awesome conversation. I think they learned a lot. I mean, we even learned a little bit today, too. On top of it, why not? And that'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you for tuning into Real Estate One-on-One with Dom and AJ. I'm AJ from AJC Realty Exchange.
And I'm Dominic Pascucci from Signature Homes and Estates.
I just want to give a special thank you to Sammy Ventola from Unity Bank.
And Brian Blada from NJ Lending. Thank
Until
you.
next time, everyone, keep thinking real estate.